Today we're going to start talking about, the holidays are here, so it's time to think about that turkey. It's really pretty easy when you think about a turkey. If you buy it frozen, you want to make sure that you get it home at least 3 to 4 days in advance and let it thaw in the refrigerator. There's a couple of other ways to thaw it too. Check the internet for those. They're probably not quite as safe, but refrigeration is best, or you can buy a fresh turkey. I'm going to show you a way to actually handle this turkey where it's going to cut about 25% off the cooking time, and you're going to get some unbelievably great flavor out of it. In fact, we're going to cut the backbone out of the turkey, relace it up using some silicone lacers, and then fill it with a stuffing, not a stuffing we're going to eat, but more aromatics that it's going to give it lots of nice flavor. Talk about how to get started with it. Before we even start touching the turkey, one of the things I'm going to make is I've taken some softened butter. Now this is going to be enough, it's about 3 sticks, and this is going to be enough butter for 2 turkeys. If I didn't tell you before, it's always better to buy smaller turkeys. They fit in the oven better, you end up getting more breast meat, and they cook a lot faster. And sometimes the bigger ones aren't always as tasty either. So in this, we're going to add in some white pepper to those butters that are already softened, and I like a little herb de Provence. Herb de Provence is a combination of parsley, chervil, thyme, lavender, and something else I can't remember. So we're going to put that in there, and I like roasted powdered garlic in it, and a touch of salt, which I have over here. So we got the salt and pepper in there, and we're going to mix this up really well. So we get those dry ingredients mixed in with the butter. And then the other thing that we're going to add to this is some fresh sage, because this is going to be a sage butter turkey. And so I'm using a ceramic knife on this just so that the sage doesn't turn black before it gets a chance to cook. So let's cut this up fairly tiny. Doesn't have to be perfect. There's been a celebrity chef on TV that does this, where they actually lay the sage leaves underneath the skin. I find that kind of too strong. So again, this is going to be enough for 2 turkeys. And then we're just going to mix this up. Sage butter already ready. What I've done is taken that and scooped it into small portions and put it in the freezer. Freezing them solid or close to solid is really nice because it kind of slows down the melting process as you cook. So now it's time to start preparing the turkey itself. First thing you do is want to reach inside, after it's nice and thawed, you want to reach inside and make sure that you get all of the innards out. This one only had a neck in it. Sometimes you're going to have a gizzard, other times the heart and the liver. Now if you do have a liver in there, do not put it in the pot for stock. So we're going to keep just the neck in this particular case. Any excess fat that you feel, try to go in there and get it out. Now, other thing that really saves a lot of time is turn your bird over, and we're going to start cutting, and we're going to take the backbone out of this guy. So we'll go down one side, and it's really pretty easy because all you're going through is the little rib bones that run right alongside the backbone. You're not cutting the backbone itself. Now I'm a lefty, so trying to use right-handed scissors as a lefty is a challenge. So okay, so I've just cut through all of the little rib bones that are along the side, and we've taken the whole backbone out. So you can just go through and cut any of the stuff. Now this makes a great stock. So you don't even have to cut it if you don't think you have the strength. You can try to just bend it through. It's going to go over in the stock pot for later. Alrighty. So now's a good chance to open this up, see if there's anybody in there that you want out, any pieces, etc. I'm going to wash my hands. Same issues that you have with chicken, it's always a good idea to stay nice and clean. So we've got this cleaned up. Now for the interior of this, what we want to do is go ahead and give it a nice liberal salting and some pepper. Now this is not going to be the only seasoning that we have to it. We're going to be adding a few other herbs and spices in just a second. So a nice liberal amount of pepper and salt on the inside. This is not going to be we're not going to eat this. What this will do will help permeate the meat and give us some really good flavor. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is lace him back up again. Now I'm using food loops that are silicone so they can go in the oven. Easiest thing to do is just kind of come through, catch some of the meat, maybe if you can get between a rib bone, and catch the next side on the other side over here. So if you never took a sewing class, you might have a little issue here. No, actually we're just doing what's called a whip stitch as it goes through. So I'll do a couple. And what I usually do is just get him going on one side, try to pull the skin and everything together, lift over, go to the next side. And we're basically putting him back together again. Now the reason for that is because we're removing the biggest bone in him, that's the part that actually takes up the most amount of heat and causes the turkey to cook so long. So by removing it, you really speed up the cooking time significantly by about 25% or more. Plus, it's not something that you normally eat anyway. It's something that's going to go into your soup or your stock the next day, so you might as well just get the guy out of there. And your turkey will still look the same. It'll still look Norman Rockwell-ish by the time we're all done. And if my hands weren't quite as slippery, it'd be easier to pull this thing through. There we go. There we go. So you just continue to keep tying it up. All the way up, and I'm using, like I said, the silicone food loops, and then just take them and connect them back together again. Although they're in here pretty secure, you don't even have to do that. And these will just be on the underneath side, and these won't melt when they cook. So this will hold the bird all back together again, and then these can be removed when they're ready to start carving it. And I usually just stick the little ends up underneath so that the skewers don't skewer me later. There we go. All right, so now we're back to a turkey. Looks like a turkey again. Got a little ugly piece over here. We'll cut that off. Now it's time to stuff it. What we're going to actually fill the cavity inside with some good aromatics. Now, for the aromatics, we're going to use apples, which I'm just going to cut into pieces. You don't even need to pour it or anything because they're not going to be eaten. It's just going to be for flavoring. And I've got enough here for 2 turkeys because I'm doing 2 turkeys today. Additionally, I've got some onion already cut up and some celery in there too. And then because we had all that sage butter, we're going to use the stems off of the sage will go in. I have some oregano, some fresh oregano we can throw in there too. Some thyme. And again, stems and all works. Into it. Break those up, and I like rosemary. If you think rosemary is too strong for you, you can certainly leave it out. I like them in here, but again, all of this is going to come out at the end. We're not going to be using it for anything. And then a little this is poultry seasoning. So a little poultry seasoning in there. A little wash of the hands again. Dry off, and a little bit of vegetable oil. I'm using grapeseed. This is just kind of to hold it all together. And we've already got the salt and the pepper in the bird, so we're just going to mix these guys up really well. Like I said, this is going to be enough for 2 turkeys. We're going to open up the cavity and just start stuffing it in there. Make sure everybody gets a little, that there's some onion and apple, the herbs, a little celery in each bird. And unfortunately, your bird's going to look like he's been attacked in a few minutes. We wait till you see this when it comes out. All right, so it's pretty full in there. Don't worry what it looks like yet. We're also going to put a few more pieces on the neck, but we're going to need to put in the butter. And so the first thing I want to do is go in and actually loosen the skin. So I just run my hand up underneath. I've loosened the skin all the way up underneath the neck. The front side here you can see all the way underneath the legs and all the way over the breast like that, so we can slip the butter in. Completely stuffed inside with those aromatics. Now it's time to put in some of that frozen butter. So I'm just going to slip it up underneath the breast right where I loosened the skin. So a little blob, and then a blob out here by that's a French term, blob, out here by the leg, so it'll get the thigh and some of those great herbs and spices and seasonings in there, a little underneath that leg right there, and another blob under the breast on the other side. I'm going to give it a little smoosh down, and one piece right up underneath this side of the breast here. There we go. And then a little bit more of the aromatics in the other end, which may or may not stay in there. We'll have to take a look at it. We'll see how it goes. And again, all of this just adds flavor. It's not something that we're going to end up eating. This will all be just tossed away. It's just adding flavor. It makes the juices taste really, really good too. So our bird has kind of an odd shape to him now. So let's do a little tie up to get him tied more into a normal turkey shape so that he looks beautiful for the table. This is always a challenge when your hands are a little slippery. There we go. Just tie it up nice and tight. Just want the legs, and I always put them in a bow. Do a French knot first, which is under twice, and then a bow just because it's easier to take off later. And then of course anything that fell out, now you can stuff it back in the hole. There we go. And the last step then is we need to get this wings underneath. And so we just take them back like this, and like you were doing some kind of an exercise at the gym, just pull the wings back and tuck them under. Easier said than done sometimes. This one's arm must have been broken in the scuffle. There we go. And so this guy is now ready. I'm just going to grab a roasting pan, and in that roasting pan I already have a rack, so that it's going to. This happens to be a silicone one, so that it washes really easy, but it keeps the bird up off the bottom. The other advantage of keeping the bird up off the bottom of the pan also is you get that dark meat up above the sides of the pan, and it cooks a little faster too. And then I've got this thing that looks kind of like a bladder, but it's actually called a silicone sling, and it's designed so that you can then lift the turkey out with it. So we're going to put this guy on here. He's all ready to go. Lost an apple, stick him underneath there. We're going to finish it off. What we need to do is kind of clean the board up a little bit. Of course, all this needs to be actually washed. We're just going to clean the board up so I can put the pan back down here for a second, get it a little closer to me. And to finish the process, it's just a matter of, now I like a little olive oil on it. So just a little bit of olive oil on the bird itself. Doesn't need much. Rub it all in. Your poor bird looks kind of like they have some kind of a disease underneath the skin, but that'll all melt away. And then we're going to add in a pretty decent amount of salt, because salt makes everything taste a little better. It also makes it nice and crispy. Nicely salted, especially down there on those thighs, which don't necessarily get a lot of seasoning sometimes. And I'm going to actually sprinkle white pepper on it. To it. That way, even though I like black pepper too, white pepper just doesn't show much on the skin, so you don't see a lot of black specks all over it. Again, make sure you pay close attention to those thighs and legs. So a little white pepper, and then the last step is to tint it. You're not going to cover it, but we're going to tint it with aluminum foil. And this is a pretty good sized bird, so I'm going to make a tent. This is called a drugstore wrap. Like this, and we're just going to tint it like this. Okay, and that keeps the breast from cooking out too quickly, slows it down, slows the browning process. Cook it at 350 degrees, which is a fairly hot oven for a turkey, for about 45 minutes, and then we're going to remove it. Remove the foil, and then continuing to cook it for about an hour and 15 minutes, but it's mostly off of the temperature. I'm looking for about 160 degrees, 165 degrees in the thigh, which is going to be the darkest. It's going to take the longest for it to cook, and that the breast is going to be nice and juicy, and then of course it needs to rest a good 30 to 45 minutes. The nice thing about having the protein rest is it gives your oven some space so that you can get all those other good side dishes ready to go. So hopefully you'll be able to have a beautiful turkey. When it comes out of the oven, we'll give you an eye at it.